Greetings and welcome, friends! I'm Ash, and today I have a little Halloween treat that I think you should try, Project Zomboid. In my eyes, easily the best zombie survival game ever made. With a tense and immersive atmosphere, a massive world to explore and inevitably ruin, countless hordes of zombies to fight or simply run away screaming from, as well as a high degree of customization, Project Zomboid simply has it all. So if you would like to experience a zombie sandbox game without any equal, allow me to share with you just why you should give Project Zomboid a try. The main thing that makes Project Zomboid so good, and why I believe it to be the perfect fit for Halloween, is its tense and crushingly oppressive atmosphere. Project Zomboid might not be scary in the same way a naked clown covered in whipped cream exploding out of your closet would be. But instead, it strikes on a far deeper, more primordial level. It instills in you the idea that you are never safe. That no matter what you do, you'll never be able to cover every corner and predict every single eventuality. And that sooner or later, you're going to slip up and end up joining the endless ranks of the dead. The way Project Zomboid accomplishes this is twofold. The first factor is that the world is eerily empty. Outside of multiplayer, there are no other people to talk to, no pets to keep you company, no nothing. It is just you, the zombie hordes wandering across the decaying carcass of a once thriving civilization, and way too much time to think. Unsurprisingly, this inevitably leads to paranoia. When you're constantly on edge, the random swaying of trees starts to look eerily similar to a zombie breaking through the branches, while the howling of wind down empty streets can often sound exactly like the moans of a zombie that is just around the corner, yet somehow always out of sight. Most of the time, these little scares will be nothing but a figment of your imagination. Yet every so often, your worst fears will come to life, thus only further enhancing the tension and only further fueling the paranoia. The second reason why Project Zomboid's dreary atmosphere is so effective is the simple fact that your character only has a single life. If you die, no matter how bravely or foolishly, that is it. An entire week's worth of gameplay can just disappear in a single mouthful of a rotten hamburger or an overconfident tussle against the living dead. There are real stakes to everything you do, which makes even the most minute of excursions outside of your safe house a stressful affair. Even as a veteran player that can confidently combat a cluster of zombies, I still frequently find myself frantically searching each area for potential threats, as my laxness has burnt me many times before. Project Zomboid's world really is a ruthless one, and much like real life, all it takes is a single moment, a single lapse of judgment, and you can end up with a massive bite wound right on your groin. Not that I would have any experience with that in either scenario. Interestingly enough, all of this is also the reason why Project Zomboid is so incredibly addictive to play. Sure, losing your character and being set back to zero really does suck, but the constant threat of dying also makes every single success feel like a monumental triumph. The simple act of getting your first car, establishing your first base, or even just finding a big backpack feels like a genuine achievement, as you simply had to risk everything in order to succeed. Also, since you're completely alone in the world and need a whole lot of tools, materials, and random knickknacks in order to survive, there's always some reason to go out on an expedition and always something new to be excited about. You will only ever run out of stuff to do once you've survived for a couple of months, but at that point you're probably ready to start doing more challenging runs, which can then greatly shake up the gameplay and invalidate many of the tricks you've come to rely on thus far. So as long as you're willing to immerse yourself in the world and your character, Project Zomboid should be able to keep you entertained for a very long time to come. When it comes to the actual gameplay, Project Zomboid is probably easiest to describe as a demented game of The Sims. Not only does your character require the usual stuff like food and water to keep going, but you also need to worry about how tired or sleepy they are, about how wounded they are physically and mentally, as well as a bunch of other smaller things like body weight and boredom that, while not super important on their own, are all relevant parts of the greater whole. Managing these things isn't usually hard, it's just that once things go bad, the various malices can really start to compound each other. Having to escape from hundreds of zombies is a terrible predicament all on its own, but if you start getting exhausted during the chase because you've been sprinting all over town earlier, that situation can very rapidly escalate into something rather unpleasant. In order to survive these types of nightmare scenarios, you'll often have to take some drastic measures, which naturally bring with them a great degree of risk, which in some cases can only further complicate things. And so, what once was a simple looting trip can easily turn into a day-long fight for your life that will either end with you going back to the menu screen or laughing with joy once you finally manage to outwit the bozos and return home unharmed. For me, this is by far my favorite part of Project Zomboid, as misfortune and the ways you overcome it help create a very vivid story for each individual character. They very quickly stop being a collection of stats and perks, and instead become that guy that killed 300 zombies in a single day because he just wanted to make a pizza, or that gal that ended her 6-month survival streak by attempting to lug 100 kilos worth of gold across a zombie-infested cemetery. And the more you get attached to your characters, the more terrifying it feels to lose them, which only makes each excursion feel all the more intense and exciting. At the end of the day, failure in Project Zomboid isn't something you should be sad or angry about. It is actually the natural state of things, so much so that every run starts with a rather ominous "this is how you died" quote. So whatever you're planning to do, just enjoy the ride, for as long or as brief as that may be. There is, however, a sizable stepping stone you'll need to overcome before you get to truly enjoy Project Zomboid, and that is the steep learning curve. Between the zombies themselves and the innumerable ways you can accidentally doom yourself, surviving for more than a couple of days as a beginner is about as likely as my characters, or myself for that matter, ignoring a giant tub of ice cream. On the positive side, once you do get to grips with how Project Zomboid works and how to maneuver through its many obstacles, the sandbox fully opens up and you're able to do basically whatever you want. You can roleplay an actual person and try to survive for as long as possible. You can embrace your inner action hero and see how many zombies you can destroy with the contents of an entire police armory. Or even see if you can fulfill the dying wish of an art teacher by liberating the art gallery from the zombies and securing the priceless paintings for future generations. Speaking of pictures, this is probably a good time to talk about Project Zomboid's presentation. As you've most likely noticed by now, Project Zomboid's visuals aren't exactly high fidelity, though they are by no means bad. The grainy and somewhat dirty look does a great job of enhancing the dreary atmosphere and really making sure you realize that this is the end of the world as we know it, and that there is nothing you can do that will ever change that. So while it might not be the prettiest game around, the visuals do serve an important role. This does also mean that Project Zomboid's system requirements are fairly low, so unless your PC itself is practically a museum piece, chances are you're going to be able to run it without any problem. As for the audio, that is just great all the way through. The moans of the zombies, the sound of their heads splattering as you stomp on them, the barely audible smashing noise somewhere in the distance, and even the way your steps slightly echo as you sneak down the abandoned hallways of the local school. All of it does a great job of building that tense and dreadful atmosphere I raved about so much at the start. The music is no slouch either. Most of it is, as you might guess, atmospheric tracks that will give you something to listen to as you wander around or cook breakfast. There are also a couple of tracks that push themselves to the forefront, and I am very happy they do because honestly, they're all great. My favorite track is called Overrun, and it plays when you're being chased by an absurdly large number of zombies. And it's my favorite because it perfectly encapsulates the sheer panic you and your characters are likely going to be going through at that moment. I mean seriously, just listen to this. The final thing worth mentioning, and perhaps the very best thing, is the simple fact that Project Zomboid is highly customizable. If you find yourself unhappy with any specific feature, or if you just want to adjust the difficulty to give yourself a more interesting experience, there's almost guaranteed to be a way to do exactly what you want, either through the in-game sandbox options or through the various community mods. My personal favorite, and something I would highly recommend you grab once you're looking for a bit of a challenge, is a mod called Random Zombies, that lets you set how many of each type of zombie will spawn in your world. I found that even a small percentage of sprinters, as low as 2 to 3%, can thoroughly shake up the gameplay and force you to think up entirely new strategies. It is a great way to freshen up the experience if you ever get too used to fighting the regular shamblers. And the best thing is, this is just one mod out of the thousands and thousands that are available out there. Despite there being an unimaginable number of zombie games, Project Zomboid manages to tower over them both in terms of scope and quality. With a massive world to explore, an intense atmosphere, and more customization options than I know what to do with, it is really no surprise that I've poured hundreds of hours into Project Zomboid without ever getting bored of it. I mean, smacking zombies over the head with a pan really is that satisfying. Best of all, Project Zomboid is still in development, and there is a lot of cool stuff slated to come with the massive update 42 at some point in the not-so-distant future. These things include a gigantic map expansion, the ability to go both underground and higher in the sky, a complete rework of the crafting system, and even the first iteration of the new NPC system. So as much of a shining gem as it is now, Project Zomboid's future is looking even brighter. And because of all of this, I would highly recommend you give Project Zomboid a try. And if you're interested in a bit of a primer before starting, I'll also be releasing a brief beginner's guide in the next few days. This one will cover the basic tips and strategies needed to survive the first 7 days. So hopefully it'll teach you something new and interesting and set you up for a good run. Thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't, please do let me know. If you would like to see more, make sure to subscribe, hit the stupid bell, pet your zombie, and do whatever other nonsense you gotta do these days. Thank you again for watching, and I do hope to see you soon. Bye bye!